Welcome, everyone. Today is a very exciting day. We're all thrilled to welcome our admitted students to Design Tech. For those of you in person and also online, thanks for joining wherever this may find you in the world. All right, so I'm going to take about 30 minutes to provide an overview of our department, as well as our Masters of Science in Design Technology. And I'll kick off with just a few words about my own background. But to start, this is Design Tech at a glance. We are a relatively new multi-college department. We have currently 12 tenured and tenure track faculty, including 7 inaugural faculty that represent the 5 participating colleges. The College of Architecture, Art, and Planning is the administrating college. Dean Mi-Jin Yoon is the lead dean. I am your inaugural department chair. And our participating colleges include engineering, Bowers Computing and Information Science, human ecology, and also Cornell Tech in New York City. And we have faculty based at Cornell Tech, my co-program director, Wendy Ju, Jose Sanchez and Harold Haroldson, who are online and will be speaking about their work towards the end of this presentation. We also have 1 instructor, 3 Design Tech Innovation Fellows, currently 47 graduate students. Our program is very international, currently 78%. And we are working on a proposal for a new PhD in design technology, which will most likely launch in the fall of 28. So for those of you that are interested in an MS to PhD pathway, that is something that you might want to consider. So a little bit about myself. I am a professor in architecture, but also, of course, in design tech. And for the past 20 years, I've been working on innovating and developing a model for teaching and conducting research across disciplinary boundaries. And this started with the formation of Lab Studio, which was a hybrid research and design unit that I launched with a longtime collaborator, the late Dr. Peter Lloyd-Jones. And in my lab at Cornell, we specialize in computational design, data visualization, and digital fabrication. We started the pilot and groundwork in 2019 for Design Tech, together with Wendy Ju and a number of colleagues from our participating colleges. And so for me, the launch of Design Tech and welcoming all of you today, our current students and our admitted students, really represents 20 plus years of work in trying to develop a new model for how we teach and conduct research across disciplinary boundaries. In the lab, we engage in 2 of Design Tech's primary hubs, including Design Plus Environments and Design Plus Materials. And we investigate the intersections of architecture and science and apply insights and theories from biology, robotics, mathematics, computer science, and engineering, and importantly to the design, fabrication, and production of responsive material structures, including bio-informed 3D printing and robotic design. So one of the fundamental questions that drives all of the work is how might buildings and their integrated material systems behave more like organisms do, adapting and responding to their local environments. This slide shows a couple of images of a project called Ada, which was a collaboration with Microsoft Research, which is an adaptive and immersive environment, and the first architectural pavilion to incorporate artificial intelligence, but importantly, to be steered by humans, to provide access to humans within the context of AI, and to open up important questions and discussions around the use of these tools in a critical way and in an ethical way. So lastly, I also run a practice, Jenny Sabin Studio, which is based here in Ithaca next to Purity Ice Cream, which is our beloved ice cream shop downtown, where we apply what we're doing in the lab in the built environment and importantly engage with diverse communities. So enough about me. A little bit about our context. The Cornell main campus here in Ithaca is situated at the southern end of Lake Cayuga. which offers unparalleled beauty in the Finger Lakes region in New York State. When I started my position here in 2011, I had lived in Philadelphia for 11 years. My hometown is Seattle. And one of the things I was worried about was leaving a big city. I now live in the woods on a gorge and absolutely love this area for many reasons. This is a view of the campus looking to the north. You can see the southern end of Lake Cayuga. And as the watershed for Lake Erie, there's incredible opportunities for hiking, water sports. The summer months here are absolutely extraordinary, but we have 4 distinct seasons, which makes it a really special place. Design Tech is also in a major city, located at Cornell Tech on Roosevelt Island, where students in the studio professional track pursue specialization project studios and are immersed in the studio curriculum at Cornell Tech, which is an incredibly unique campus. If you have not been to Roosevelt Island, I strongly encourage you to visit. It's an incredible slice situated between Long Island City and Manhattan with incredible views, as you can see in some of these images here. We were just there the other week, bringing together our first year Design Tech students and our second year studio professional track students together for the very first time. And this is a photograph that we took just about a week and a half ago. So why Design Tech? Design and technology have in many ways never been more important. The challenges of our time demand that design and technology integrate to cultivate new models that are collaborative and transformative for highly creative applications to comprehend important social, environmental, and technological issues. For example, as recently featured in the Cornell Chronicle, quote, "If deep space exploration is to become a reality, humans will need to be as self-sufficient as possible. Since ordering supplies from Earth won't be practical, the astronauts will have to fabricate their own components for equipment and other products through additive manufacturing, as we all know, 3D printing," end quote. These challenges may be overcome thanks to modeling software created in the lab of Derek Warner here at Cornell. And at a radically different scale are 3D printed tissues and body parts, such as this 3D printed ear by bioengineers and physicians at Cornell that looks and acts real, which gives new hope for children born with congenital deformities. At the same time, technology development is also gaining research prominence. For example, there was a 7th directorate launched in 2019 at the National Science Foundation, and the NSF had not added a directorate for close to 30 years. And that directorate is focused on technology, innovations, and partnerships. And in developing pathways for technological applications, there has been an emergence and awareness of the importance of design, that you need design to actualize technology. So there are incredible opportunities in core research as well as in industry and practice. And the Design Tech inaugural faculty have been successful in securing grants from the National Science Foundation and beyond, such as with Helioskin, which is a bio-inspired mechanically tracking solar collection skin for canopies, buildings, and stadiums. In many ways, we're in the midst of what some call the 4th Industrial Revolution, a paradigm shift that some historians write is the biggest to impact design since the medieval period, historians such as Mario Carpo, for example. And these new intersections between the digital, the physical, and the biological are radically altering the world from the nano to the macro scales. And at Cornell, we are engaged in these critical areas, and the MS in Design Technology program is a leader and an innovator in collaborative teaching and research across disciplines. And so what is at the center of this incredible work? Limitless and transformative creativity, human creativity. And Cornell is really a leader in this space. You'll hear from Tiffany Chang in a moment about some of the incredible work that she's working on in her lab. And so how do we address these important issues and shifts? Radical new models are needed for design research and alternative forms of practice, including teaching across disciplines, industries, and alternative forms of practice. And so one approach is as structured through design tech and our multi-college department entails the hybridization of labs and studios to fuse innovations across science, technology, and design to generate, for example, next generation materials and structures that are adaptive, efficient, smart, and resilient. And Cornell broadly is engaged in these critical areas, and the MS Design Technology program is a leader and innovator in collaborative teaching and research across disciplines. Cornell is known as an R1 research university, which basically means that research activity is very high. So for all of you in the Design Tech program, you have opportunities to engage in research, work in faculty labs, and really be at the cutting edge of this type of work. The new department and our program is structured through three broad areas, which focuses on the three primary areas, including design plus materials, design plus interactions, design plus environments. And also there are opportunities to get involved with this core research, including areas in AI, data and design, bio-inspired design, interaction design, digital, spatial, and immersive environments, responsive programmable materials, digital media design, and computational design and robotics. Within the multi-college Department of Design Tech, we have many faculty labs that you can get involved with. This slide just highlights a few of them here at AAP and within Design Tech. And as the administrating college for Design Tech, AAP is really a global leader in creativity, innovation, and impact. And this is our college mission statement, which embodies many of the core tenets of DTech. So as we developed and launched the new department, we also launched a lecture series where we have brought in incredible thinkers, scholars, practitioners engaged in design technology broadly defined. This evening, you will hear from one of our own faculty, James Weaver, who is a pioneer in bio-inspired design as it cuts across materials science, technology, and engineering, and specifically working with 3D printing. You'll also have opportunities to engage in exhibitions. As part of our inaugural year, we opened the inaugural Design Tech Open Studio exhibition, which was on view here at AAP and then traveled down to Cornell Tech and was part of the citywide festival called NYC X Design. And as those of you that are here in person have, we also launched our first publication series, Design Tech Volumes, and we're just about to start work on Volume 2. So this will happen every year and is an opportunity for you to publish the incredible work that you will be engaged in, either in core courses and electives or in the research that you may do with faculty. For those of you in the studio professional track, in the second year, you will also have an opportunity to engage in events such as Open Studio, which happens once a semester. And this is when Cornell Tech opens their doors to the city, and upwards 400 to 500 practitioners, academics, industry experts come to see what you're doing. So it's an incredible networking opportunity as well. We've had students land internships and jobs through Open Studio. And at the core of everything that we do in our teaching and our research, as we engage outside of DTech with communities, we uphold excellence. And that's demonstrated in the partnerships that we've made. We have a new partnership with Autodesk, for example. Also in the publishing, as I mentioned, and the faculty that we have been able to bring on board here in DTech, which I'll say a few words about in just a moment. Excellence is also reflected in the facilities that you will get to work in and learn within, such as the Milstein Dome, where we are now in person. as well as the Mui Ho Fine Arts Library, which you'll see on a tour later today for those of you that are here with us in person. The newly named Autodesk Design and Make Space, which holds our robotics suite, which you will have a tour of, and also the incredible facilities at Cornell Tech. So I talked about our Super 7, as I call them, our inaugural Design Tech faculty, who are all tenured professors in our participating colleges. All of these faculty also participated on the task force that Professor Wendy Ju and I co-led, which we did the groundwork to get us to this point. So this is a really special group of faculty that you can lean on, you will learn from, work with in an advisor fashion, and engage in core teaching that truly is transdisciplinary. And we have been growing. We have launched faculty searches for several years through what is called a Radical Collaboration Initiative, supported by the Provost's Office. We completed our second round of faculty hires last year, where we had two searches, one joint with Cornell Tech, and also one that was joint with engineering, including with mechanical and aerospace engineering and material science and engineering. And that has resulted in the hiring of 5 new amazing faculty. Amira and Max will be joining us in July. Marina is here in the room. And as I mentioned, you'll be hearing from James this evening, and Jose Sanchez is here with us online. So now a bit more about the program. In the first year, all of you will come to us here in Ithaca. You will take core studios and required courses, as well as electives that support your own research and project interests. In the fall semester, you will take design and making across disciplines, which this academic year, Tiffany Cheng was our coordinator. This was a studio that I piloted and crafted starting in 2019. For 4 years, I was teaching at Cornell Tech, going back and forth, integrating our students with Cornell Tech students, piloting these courses. So this is a really special course that in the fall semester is really focused on process, right? And exposing you to generative design processes, systemic thinking, designing through relationships, importantly, learning the methods, the techniques, and the tools, and most importantly, being taught by faculty that bring other disciplinary knowledge to the space of design and tech. Faculty such as Uli Weissner from material science, one of our design tech fellows, Sam Letter, led an incredible module, which I'll say something about in just a moment, or Jonathan Butcher in biomedical engineering. So you will move fluidly back and forth between digital iterations and investigation, as well as physical prototyping, bringing in the constraints of making across disciplines, including 3D printing, robotics, and beyond. And the modules are structured around topics that include generative and bio-inspired design, material science, so looking at the differences between adaptive versus responsive materials. And we also had a module on collective robotic construction that Sam Letter led. And here's an image of the final demo with the students working collectively. In addition to the core studio, which has a part 1 in the fall and a part 2 in the spring, you will also take the required course Design for Physical Interaction, which has been led by Daniel Leithinger and colleagues including Marcelo Cuolo, Guy Hoffman, and currently Chris Wobkin. And in this course, you will investigate the relationships between interfaces and designing for human behavior. So looking at human-computer interaction. Right now, the students are working on what the instructors called large language objects, which entails creating a physical interface that is powered by LLMs, where you will critically and creatively work with AI, open the hood, and understand how to work with these tools in transformative ways. You also take Coding for Design, which is a course that's really focused on the application of programming. So it's different from, say, taking a course in computer science and Python, in that it's really focused on design iteration. And we have a host of electives within Design Tech, but you're also really encouraged to take electives outside of the department, either here in AAP or in our participating colleges. These are a few of the electives that have been offered previously, such as Rethinking Timber Joinery with Lawson Spencer, who's an instructor in Design Tech. He also is in charge of robotics technical support, so he is a bridge between these amazing machines and teaching. Courses on AI and design. This fall, we will be launching a new course on AI, design, and creativity. This was one course taught by Adam Burke that was titled From MLPs to APIs, where the students looked at the relationships between multi-layer perceptrons, which is a type of artificial neural network consisting of multiple layers of neurons. Or Tiffany's course, the bio-inspired transfer of design principles through emerging tech, so bridging natural systems with programmable materials. Other opportunities to get involved with working with the robots through parametric assemblies, or in Marina's courses, again, looking at the human in the loop, or in this course, anthropocentric models of making with cooperative robots. We also offer electives that engage entrepreneurship and aspects of intellectual property, looking at patents and tech transfer. This was a course taught by Dick Cahoon, who ran our tech transfer office here at Cornell for 20 years, titled Understanding the Aesthetic versus Function Continuum and its Relevance to IP Considerations. So for those of you in the studio professional track, in the second year, you will head to New York City, and you will become Cornell Tech students in Design Tech, and you'll be immersed in the studio curriculum. In the fall semester, you will take Product Studio, which is a mandatory course that all of the master students at Cornell Tech take, so you'll have the opportunity to work with other students and other programs. And Product Studio is structured around a single how might we question. And so the spring preceding Product Studio, a call goes out to companies, nonprofits, NGOs, community organizations to submit a proposal in the form of a how might we question. And approximately 100 of those entities are selected to work with students. A few of the examples of previous projects and questions have included from Adobe. They challenged students with how might we validate the authenticity of digital content shared on social networks and attribute the content to the creator. Frog challenged our students with how might we use wearables and or sensors to enhance a design researcher's ability to draw more valuable insights while in the field. So through Product Studio, you will be taken through an iterative design methodology to realize a product that will emerge from that process. At Cornell Tech, specialization projects include co-mentoring students in project-based design learning to expand offerings in emerging tech areas that are critical to enhance your impact on this growing field and in our communities. So in the spec studios in the fall and spring, you'll be able to deepen investigation into an area that you're interested in. This might connect to Product Studio. It might be something that you've started in the first year that you want to take to the next level. So this slide highlights the curriculum at a glance. In the first year, as I mentioned, you take design and making across disciplines, design for physical interaction, and coding for design, and then open electives in both the fall and spring semesters. In the summer semester, you have the option to stay here, which, especially for the thesis research students, we really encourage you staying here, working in faculty labs, deepening your pre-thesis work. And this grad shell is a non-tuition bearing grad shell that simply allows you to continue to be students here on campus. And in the second year, as I mentioned, that's when you split into your two tracks. Those of you in the thesis research track will stay here, working very closely with your faculty committee. At the end of the spring studio, which is a pre-thesis and pre-specialization project studio for both tracks, you will identify the chair of your committee, as well as start to consider who those minor members might be to support your thesis research. For those of you in the studio professional track, as you can see, I mentioned you'll take product studio, as well as electives at Cornell Tech, and your specialization project studio, which this year Jose Sanchez taught in the fall, and currently Wendy Ju is teaching this spring. And then in the spring semester, you'll have more choice as to the studios that you take, including Startup Studio, Big Co Studio, PyTech Studio, and beyond. The program has also inspired new collaborations, such as this one with the XR Collaboratory, which Harold Haroldson directs. You will hear from him in a moment, where students from AAP and Cornell Tech are working together to integrate cutting-edge XR technologies with design to explore things like simulated reality and alternative forms of communication. Harold, each semester offers independent studies, which sometimes lead to peer-reviewed publications. Our students also publish in co-authored scientific and technical venues at conferences and peer-reviewed journals, such as robotics, as you can see here with this cover article. And for the students in the thesis research track, you will also submit your final thesis project to the graduate school, and that is entered into a repository that is kept indefinitely. This is actually the very first thesis submission by Leo, who was our very first matter design computation student, which was the precursor MS to the design technology program, focusing on programmable Kirigami. Leo went on to do his PhD at CMU, Carnegie Mellon, and he now holds a tenure track position and has launched his own lab. Which brings me to the question, where will all of you end up? You will be thought leaders and directors in industry and alternative forms of practice. We have a robust alumni network that is international. You will lead units in big tech, in practices and other industry applications, and also in academia, especially for those in the thesis research track. We have an incredible track record of students pursuing PhDs in competitive programs and going on to secure tenure track positions. And to return to some of the spaces that you will engage with, our historic Sibley Dome here in Ithaca has undergone a massive renovation, in particular to ensure that Design Tech has a physical and permanent home here in Ithaca. And for those of you that are in person, we will be able to tour the new studio spaces. This is a rendering of the D-Tech space you can see here. And our current first-year students will be able to move from their temporary location on the Tuesday after spring break, which is the first time I have been able to officially announce that. I have not even seen this space, so it's super exciting. And this will also be the home for the Center for Cities. And there's a breakout area called the Commons, where you can work in groups, meet with faculty. And flanked by the amazing Sibley Dome will be a new auditorium. And in the fall, our course on AI design and creativity that Daniel Leithinger will be leading will be taught in this space. And at Cornell Tech, we just brought together all of our NYC-based programs in design tech, architecture, planning, and beyond in a new permanent space on the 4th floor of the Tata Innovation Center, which is where Jose, Harold, and Wendy are sitting now, which is a building by Weissman Freddy. And AAP, which is the Gensler AAP NYC Center, occupies this whole area here, shared with our Cornell Tech colleagues. The studio spaces are here and here with classrooms, faculty offices, an amazing space for lectures and reviews, and a shared kitchen. It doesn't look like this now, but this was just before we moved in all of the furniture. And our amazing executive director, Bob Balder, will be engaging with all of our studio professional track students very soon. So with that, I'm going to stop talking about our department and program and invite our faculty to come up and say 3 to 5 minutes of words about their own research and teaching, beginning with Marina.
Hi, everyone. So glad that you're here with us today. So I will briefly share what we do in my lab. So I'm an assistant professor. I joined the department last year. And I'm now leading the Synergetic Systems Labs here at Design Tech. We're interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary lab with students from design tech, engineering, information science, and we're growing. So our mission at the lab is we're asking how can technology actually accelerate a more eco-social paradigm shift in how we construct our built environment, and we look at creating lighter and smarter systems, at making them with local materials and respecting craft practices, and we also look at creating more human-centered workflows. So we essentially look at lightweight structures and adaptive systems. We develop new computational pipelines to do that. And the methods we are using is 3D printing, construction robotics, and also interactive fabrication workflows. So as I said, a large area of research in the lab is lighter and smarter systems. So we develop new methods and technologies in achieving what we call ultralight architecture that has a very, very low impact on the environment and can enable a lot of smarter systems, can enable self-assembly, robotic assembly, and so on. And how we do that, we look at kind of like programming functional intelligence into every kind of like grain of sand in these additively manufactured components that are locally adapted throughout the structures we create. And right now, some of the students at the lab that you might have a chance to talk to later, they're working on using such methods to create kind of like rapidly deployable systems that can be rapidly deployed on Earth, in emergency shelters, or even in space. We also look at how we construct things, and some of the interesting things that we found looking at the demographics in the construction sector is that the humans that are involved in these trades suffer from various things. We have one of the highest suicide rates in all trades. The demographics of the people working in the sector are very skewed. So we like to think about how the technologies that we engage with and apply actually affect the humans that are involved in these practices. And so we look at human machine collectives in construction, and specifically human in the loop and how we design technologies for more human-centered approaches to fabrication, how we enable agency through technology for designers and makers, and leverage that new workflows to create more sustainable systems that are also human-centered. So we also, what you saw before was a project that looked at how we can actually work with reclaimed materials that has a lot of uncertainty and a lot of other things that we need to consider. We also look at topics like hybrid craft and how we can reimagine our crafts with technology. What are the things that we choose to transform into automated parts of the system versus things that are really valuable for humans to maintain agency and control. And we also look at creating new interfaces for this kind of like hybrid human-machine workflows in making, whether those are physical, whether they are digital, or right now we're also working in kind of like multimodal interface systems to work with robots. We also care a lot about how we evaluate our design systems. And so we also partner with psychologists to understand whether after we create a system, how does that perform and what the impact might be in designers and humans involved. But we also think about proactively engaging with new frameworks and creating new design systems that help us to think about the technological systems we design before we actually design and actualize them, to have kind of like better and more rounded ways to think about this. And as I said, we're a growing lab. We have already quite a few partnerships that vary from engineering, from information science, psychology. As I said, we have new partnerships with media artists and industry partners. So if you want to learn more about about our work, you can just simply reach out or follow us on Instagram and other channels. Thank you.
So I know that Uli Weissner is at a search committee. He was supposed to be here right at 10:10, but I'm sure he'll join us soon. I won't attempt to describe Uli's work, but he is in materials science, was a part of the task force that did the groundwork for DTech, and also teaches in the first year studio. As I mentioned, we have a module that's focused on the relationships or differences between adaptive versus responsive materials. Uli is an extraordinary scientist doing incredible work that cuts across disciplinary boundaries. Take a look at his work on CDOTS, which is transforming cancer research through clinical trials. And some of the work has also led to students spinning out companies. When he gets back, if we have time, we'll come back to these slides and we'll have him share a bit more details about this. But he works from the nano to macro scales, and it also incorporates 3D printing. And just recently started his first parametric design project with James Weaver with some of their students. And we share synergies in terms of looking at structural color. He engages in collaborations with artists, such as this project, which was called the Needle Woman, where they developed an entirely new material that was iridescent and based on structural color principles. So with that, I will pass it to Assistant Professor Tiffany Chang.
All right. My name is Tiffany Chang. I'm an assistant professor here. I joined Cornell last year in January. I teach the core design tech studio for first years, as Jenny mentioned. I also teach a special topics seminar on biomimetics and design using 4D printing. I'll explain what 4D printing is in a moment. But I direct the multi-meso lab, so that's my research lab at Cornell, where we develop weather responsive material systems that change shape without consuming any electrical energy to operate. So yeah, and we can do this using additive manufacturing technologies. And here you're seeing filament fabrication, which is a very affordable and accessible technology. So, different than how you might traditionally use 3D printing, we control the actual extrusion process of that technology using computational design. And that helps us control the material properties directionally and control things like directional stiffness and areas that change shape. So if you look to nature, we can actually design better products and solutions. So we look a lot at new biological role models from known role models like the pine cone, but also new role models. I look a lot at plants because they have some of these plants don't use any metabolic energy to change shape. And here in this example, we're actually looking at the tensioning behavior of the air potato plant, which is this twining plant that sort of tensions itself as it climbs onto a smooth support structure. And we studied that approach, and we transferred it to self-tightening splints as one of those applications. So I also want to mention that we can take these methods from the desktop hobbyist scale to also the large scale using robotic additive manufacturing. So I also want to emphasize that everything that we are fabricating, it's actually fabricated flat, which makes it very efficient and possible to tune the mechanical properties. And it's also a much faster way to fabricate things. So again, compared to traditional modes of 3D printing, these structures this one in particular was fabricated in 30 minutes. And it's it's half a meter large. So yeah, I mentioned that maybe I was trained as an architect. That's my background. I also went into a master's in design and then a PhD in engineering. So I also want to emphasize that my work is very interdisciplinary. I work with biologists, I work with material scientists and physicists, and being an architect, it's always been my mission to bring these technologies from the lab into the real world, right? So that's also a big focus of my work. You can see here we have a built project in Germany where we applied the self-shaping material system to a adaptive facade. My team here is also very diverse in terms of backgrounds. We have, again, students from ecology, architecture, engineering, chemistry. Some of my team members are actually here, so feel free to chat with them. And I think I'll actually stop here because we're going to see more on the tour. So yeah, thanks.
All right. Next up, we have Professor Wendy Ju.
So I'm Wendy Ju. This video can just like loop in the background as I'm talking. I'm an associate professor for the last so many days of March. I just heard that I'm being promoted to full professor in April. I joined Cornell Tech in 2018, and I'm in the Department of Information Science, and of course, had a big role to play in the starting of the design tech department. My research focuses on how people interact with automation. The video that's being shown here are two of our trash barrel robots, which we deployed in both Astor Place, Albee Plaza, actually every borough in New York City. And this has got kind of turned into like the mascot for my research group. I study how people interact with automation and automated systems. And as part of that research, we do a lot of things to prototype possible systems and then deploy them using Wizard of Oz techniques where we have human researchers actually controlling the robots to understand what people are going to do, because a lot of the interactions, because interactions are reciprocal exchanges of communication, action, objects, it's actually really important to know how people are going to behave in order to design these machines properly. And this is something that hasn't been done enough. When we think about the design of everything from autonomous vehicles to robots, you don't really have novel ways to kind of get the behavior at the time that you actually need the information to make the systems work properly. So in my lab, we have on top of, robots that prototype interaction, we also have a driving simulator on the road, fake autonomous cars that we can use to actually do experiments to understand how other road users, drivers, pedestrians will interact. And we do a lot of things to invent what we think the future of design is going to be. So, for example, I teach a course in interactive device design, so people can prototype different kinds of systems. I also teach a course this term on designing products with e-waste, and also on alternate years, I teach courses on designing interactive robot behavior. I'm really excited about this new department. I hope you guys have a chance to come take classes with us and invent new things.
Thank you, Wendy. Next up, we have Harold Haroldson.
All right, wonderful. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Harold. I'm based here at Cornell Tech in New York City. I've been here since 2018, and last year I joined the Department of Design Tech as Associate Professor of the practice. I lead this initiative called XR Collaboratory, and my focus is on AR, VR, 3D UIs, and interaction design. Now, if Jenny, if you could flip. So the question is, as students, incoming students, how can you engage with my work and the work that my group does? I teach 2 courses on AR and VR, one in fall, which is kind of more fundamental on CS and coding and 3D math and such. And then in spring, we actually have a design course called 3D Interaction Design. So these are around 50 students each semester, so you get the chance to interact with Cornell Tech students from a variety of programs. And then, as Jenny mentioned already, I do put a lot of work into independent study. So that means that we have a few seats every semester where we take on students to do kind of focused work outside of the classroom as projects, usually for 3 academic credits. And this is in the lab. And this would obviously involve some elements of AR, VR, interaction design, and prototyping. Jenny, if you would flip to the next and the final slide. So you can see more of our work on our website. We have detailed information about our courses, our projects, both faculty-led projects and student-led projects. But just to give you a glimpse here, from left to right, you can see an AR project at the far left. This is a recent project by a Cornell Tech student, Qingxuan Yan. And this was actually exhibited last week in Korea at IEEE VR as a poster. So this is an example of an independent study project going all the way and being shared with the external world. The middle project there is a design application where we use our approach to prototyping, building modular components. So all that you see here is built out of separate interaction techniques, all coming together in a coherent application. And then finally, on the right, we have a project that kind of represents our interests in interacting with the physical world. So we do a little bit of hardware projects every semester. For example, we are working with a design tech student this semester and fall semester, working with ROS, Robot Operating System, and integrate that with AR/VR prototyping. And then finally, the last layer that you see there, 6 figures, this represents our kind of crown jewel, which is the XRC toolkit. And that is our own infrastructure of packages that enables us to do this kind of rapid prototyping. So we put a lot of effort into both software engineering and design and kind of rapid prototyping. So I'm looking forward to answering any questions you might have about our work. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Harold. And next up, we have Associate Professor Jose Sanchez.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. So similar to Wendy, my work also examines how we observe the behavior of people. I do that more primarily through the lens of games and play. So if we can go to the next slide. I have a background in digital fabrication, where I started observing at games. Next one. And basically generative systems. How does design in the hands of a player can drastically change the expectations of a designer, right? So when we think that we're simulating a system, we might think of it with a clear outcome, but when we actually open it up to the public, that outcome really takes different forms. It's a cultural kind of adoption. And I think that this exercise of play really infuses a new kind of energy and a new kind of conceptual framing for design. Next one. I do that both in physical form and in digital form. I've developed a couple of video games that you can find publicly on Steam. This is Blockhood. Next one. Where we actually think of the city as a series of discrete objects that interact with one another, right? Like how do we think of a supply chain? How do we simulate the different environments and biomes that are constructed both in a natural world, but also in cities and neighborhoods, right? So you, as a player, you could actually take many possible paths through the simulation to actually arrive at meaningful patterns and understanding of how the city actually is shaped through the exchange of resources. Next one. We use these games both in the classroom and in teaching environments, in community workshops. I've been doing a lot of work on open source and kind of trying to make this as easy and accessible to minorities specifically. How do we kind of work with kids in high school sometimes to develop games that are informed by their experiences? And next one. And more recently, my work here at the lab has been looking at historical preservation. How do we kind of use video game technologies and installation type games, next, to study particular processes. This is a kind of a historical event that has happened over many years in the island of Chiloé, in Chile, where I'm originally from. And how do video games can actually revisit some of this heritage and kind of invite players to reenact or kind of exercise a degree of understanding that is different from reading on a textbook or perhaps engaging with it in a film, but rather kind of participate on the act of, in this case, pulling a home, this moving a piece of infrastructure through a landscape, and video games being a new medium for design to really engage with the public at large. So if you're interested on public engagement, motion capture, animation, and any of the kind of simulation aspects that has to do with real-time video games, I would be the person to get in touch with. These are the type of exhibitions that we do. I'll happy to answer any questions afterwards as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jose.
Maybe can I jump in and mention we have a new faculty member who's joining in July, Max Kremensky, and I'm going to put their website up on the chat here, and just to mention that they're joining, and we have another person who's like specialized in Gen AI in research that we're really excited to have.
Thank you, Wendy. Yeah, Max is the former head of storytelling and narrative for Midjourney. So really excited to welcome Max, as well as Amira, as I mentioned. Amira is our joint hire with mechanical engineering and design tech. Before we launch into the Q&A, we'll have an hour for this session. I do want to take a moment to introduce Rebecca Gibbons, who is our department manager. Many of you have interacted with Rebecca online. and also Artur Alegre, who is our program coordinator, who I'm sure you also have been in touch with. This open house and much of what we do would not be possible without these two extraordinary individuals. So we're going to go ahead and open it up for Q&A. Why don't we start with those that are here in person, and then we'll move to the chat.
Okay, so I know there's a studio track and the thesis track, and what's the ratio of people between those two, like 1-to-1 or something else?
Great question. It's roughly 2/3, 1/3. 2/3 studio professional track and 1/3 thesis track.
And what was the size of
The current cohort? So it's usually around 8 students. This year we have 7 thesis research track students in the second year. This coming year we'll have 10 in the thesis research track. So it ebbs and flows, but we're also growing. So in the recent year, we admitted 24 students. This year, we'll be admitting 36 students. Yeah.
About like, if I choose studio track, can I still do a research project or something during the summer or?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a couple of ways that you could engage in research as a studio professional track student. We have current studio professional track students that are working in faculty labs part-time, working on core research projects. Some students do independent studies, as Harold mentioned, which is another way to engage in core research. And then in your second year, as we talked about, you'll take your specialization project studio, and that is very independently driven. Students are also working in groups depending on the project. So that's also a way that you can tailor, your own interests and focus.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm going to let Marina answer that question, as Marina is leading that course this year.
We focus on Python for a number of reasons, but we had students in the past that wanted to explore, workflow with a different language, and in general, we're flexible and accommodating that within the possible means and whether it fits, with a program.
I'm going to shift to the chat here to see if we have any questions online. Okay, so we have a question from, let's go to the top here, Joseph Wong. In what way will we be engaging in labs? So that's similar to my answer to the previous question about how to engage with research. There are several different ways that you can engage in faculty labs. One is through hourly positions. Many of our faculty have funded research, so they have the ability to support students in their labs. The other way is through independent studies. And then also through the core teachings. So for example, as I mentioned in the first year studio, we have faculty from our participating colleges who are DTech faculty that teach modules. So that's another way that the research is brought into the core curriculum. All right. So Yolanda, I've heard the program is very architecture heavy. For a student with a media and games background, what is the learning curve like for a first year set of courses? Are we expected to have architecture knowledge? I'll just say simply no. And I think you saw just in the quick cross-section of presentations that we have a very diverse faculty coming from a diverse set of disciplinary backgrounds in terms of their expertise. And also in the elective offerings, the core courses, you will be exposed to a range of techniques and media. I would say that one thing that is common that cuts across is a focus on making, right? And making as a way of learning. But importantly, how that intersects with digital investigation and iteration. But I'll pass this to my colleagues to maybe say a few words. Maybe Francois, do you want to? You don't come from an architecture background.
Background. Yes, so I don't come. I have a master in electrical engineering and a PhD in computer science. But I'm always been interested in design, and my work is currently, as I say, on fabrication and yarn-based fabrication. So I think to answer the question, I think that we the managing college is architecture, and many of my colleagues are from architecture, but the goal of the program is really to focus on design. You have seen several presentations which are about gaming and VR. Yes, the answer is definitively a resounding no. It's really a question about focus on design and all aspects of design. Maybe Jose from.
Yeah, may I add, I think Jenny's comment was on point that sometimes, because we push you to make things and prototype, this doesn't mean that it's aligned per se with architecture, but we believe that it's a crucial part of the learning process. And the people that may not have had this experience in their background are just exposed to kind of like a new methodology and process where you have to not only create digital prototypes, but you also have to accompany that with physical prototypes, right? And that's maybe new, but we do think that it's a core part of the learning process that you get to engage here, whether you end up being affiliated with something in architecture or in computer science, as Francois mentioned, or like in any other area.
Great. We have another question in the chat. I was wondering if the studio track offers any opportunities or resources to support entrepreneurship. The answer is yes. So in the second year, when you're at Cornell Tech, a major mission of all of the programs at Cornell Tech, including Design Tech, is focused on engagement and entrepreneurship. So the studio curriculum is all about connecting you with industry, with practice, with looking at how research moves out of the lab into practice, depending on your interests. And we hope that you will stay in New York City. There's also a strong focus on networking, right? So in the studio curriculum, the people that are advising your teams, they are potential employers, right? So there's lots of opportunity for you to connect with industry. But I'm going to pass it to my colleagues at Cornell Tech to say a few things. Wendy, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, we have two sets of courses in the studio curriculum. In the fall, everybody at Cornell Tech in the master's program takes product studio, and people are working on multidisciplinary teams, on creating new product. And as Jenny has alluded, you're getting advice from advisors and people from industry from all over the New York City environment. In the spring, the cohort gets divvied up, and there are people who are working on startup studio for people who want to start their own companies, big co studio for people who want to work in an entrepreneurial concern, but in large companies, something they call intrapreneurship. And also, most recently, Tech Studio for people who are interested in working in nonprofits, governmental work, or work where it's actually focused a little bit more on the public interest mission of Cornell Tech. So I think that just drawing from the experience that the first cohort is having, people who have entrepreneurial goals are really excited to be on this campus and among so many people from other backgrounds who have similar interests. Of course, doing a startup and doing, I think one of the students here wants to start their own practice. It's tough thing. And so we're trying to connect people with a lot of experience doing that and help them get going. I don't know if Jose or Harold, if you want to add anything.
No, I would just echo this. If you're looking for this kind of specific entrepreneurial energy, you will find it on this campus. You will find like-minded people from other programs, and you should feel absolutely at home here.
Maybe to add to that, I think that there's multiple versions of that. I think that what we could see is that students that are highly motivated are finding those entrepreneurial kind of pockets, but there's also social entrepreneurship. There's all sorts of different forms of engagement that certainly have room to grow here as well. So the way in which how you twist that all the resources around, it's incredibly flexible, and I think that New York City has all the resources to plug you either into the art world or into a startup culture. And there's kind of a large range of possible paths that emerge from this engagement.
What is the policy on IP? Like if we were to invent something or get a patent or make a startup, what role does Cornell play in that?
Great question. So the students in the second semester studio actually have we talked a little bit about that. Cornell has a really great and accessible IP form for students and faculty. That's a blanket IP form. So, for example, in the spring studio, the students are engaged in user research right now, which is the third module. So they're conducting interviews and getting feedback on their projects. And if IP were to be a part of one of those conversations, there's a really easy way to just protect that. So there's that mechanism in place, which is sort of low-hanging fruit. But we have a really great office for technology transfer. So if you develop something with faculty or in one of the courses and you want to disclose that IP and protect it, there's a whole group of staff that are there to vet your tech and help you work through the best way to protect it. I myself have gone through that a couple times with lab research. So there's lots of opportunity. And then as Wendy mentioned, there are programs in place to spin out. So I have a former student right now who worked in my lab who graduated last year, where we just submitted a proposal to what's called an Ignite Fellowship. And that's about $160,000 worth of funding to support a really generous salary for a full year and to work with a faculty member to spin out that tech. And so in this case, the former student would become the CEO of the Helioskin project that we launched through the NSF. And at Cornell Tech, there are also opportunities. The Runway program is a great way for students to have a full year of incubation. You'll get support, faculty advisor group, and a lot of those projects have been extremely successful in spinning out into companies. And we've had students take part in those winning teams because design and technology are necessary to succeed.
I do have another unrelated question. Yeah. What is like the typical course structure like for these required courses? Do they meet like once a week, twice a week, and how long?
Yeah, great question. So studio meets twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2 to 4:30. During reviews, sometimes we go over. Our students like to give long presentations. We had a mid-review yesterday. We're working on pitching. We had a mid-review yesterday. There's work up from that. So we started a little bit early, but ended still at 6 p.m. So that's studio, 2 to 4:30, twice a week. The required courses in the first year, design for physical interaction is structured as a lab and lecture. So you meet twice, one for the lecture component and then a second time for the lab. Coding for design meets once a week. And the electives meet once a week. At Cornell Tech, a lot of the electives are split over 2 days. Wendy, do you want to say a little bit about the structure of courses there?
Yeah, I think the studio classes tend to be on one day, but most of the courses, like the electives, are either Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. We avoid scheduling Friday because they have the studio course I've mentioned basically meet on Friday. The curriculum where you have the product studio or big co studio, like those tend to be on Fridays. So they have, I think, an early morning slot and then the Fridays set aside. And I'm not 100% sure of the um product studio curriculum, but I like their schedule, but my understanding is they have these periodic hackathons, which are actually like quite involved and take a lot of time. So yeah, I think that it tends to be though a twice a week cadence. I also have in my interactive device design class lecture one day and lab activity one day. And so I think there is either once a week hands-on activity or like a long continuous thing, which is all together.
So we have another question in the chat. I'm particularly interested in VR XR technologies and their real world application. Coming from an architecture and creative background, I'm curious how the program helps students build the technical depth needed to transition into this space. Also, are there any specific tools, skills, or preparatory resources you'd recommend I start exploring before joining so I can make the most of the program? I'm going to pass it to Harold first, and then I'd actually love to have some of our current students say a little bit about tools and techniques and what we use. Go ahead, Harold.
Sure. So as I mentioned before, we have two courses, Cornell Tech. The first one does have prereqs. It is a CS course number and info course number. So I would recommend, if you're motivated to enroll in that course, because that course is an excellent opportunity to build up your technical skills. But you would have to, I would say, go through some of the resources. I'm happy to share that both in the chat and with the broader audience. I would recommend doing coding exercises before enrolling in that course. It is heavy on the coding part because if you are kind of navigating fundamental programming concepts, it would slow down in terms of working on the assignments. Then for the second course that we have in spring, there are no prereqs. But then again, we don't have a lot of technical programming assignments in that course. So this is kind of how we structure it. We're also serving CS students and students from all the programs on campus at Cornell Tech. But I'm happy to share. I get this question every single semester, especially for incoming students. How can I prepare? How can I kind of build up my foundation to be ready for the AR/VR courses? And I'll share some links in the chat here.
I'll add that we have a required DTech Foundations 2-week pre-semester course/workshop that all of you as admitted students will participate in. So that starts 2 weeks before the first day of classes and is led by Lawson Spencer together with students who are from our second year cohort. And that's an opportunity, one, to be exposed to the generative design thinking that we teach in the studio, but importantly, to build up your skills, technical skills, your digital dexterity with the various techniques and methods that we incorporate so that you're really ready to hit the ground running. But we don't expect that you come in with extensive background or knowledge. I'm going to put Kobe on the spot because Kobe came in from a biology background in evolutionary biology, and I think went through the steep learning curve during the first fall semester, and now is doing extraordinary work in his thesis. But Kobe, you want to say a few things about tools and being immersed in this new area?
Yeah. Yeah. So as Jenny said, my background is ecology and evolutionary biology. And I came straight from undergraduate. And I think this kind of relates to a question that somebody brought up before about architecture, but I would not be afraid of the word architecture and thinking that that just means building. But it actually just means really cool tools that your discipline may not have heard of before. And especially the first year when you don't come from a design background, you're learning a lot about these tools. So Grasshopper and Rhino are really familiar, but there's Blender, Houdini, there's learning coding with Python and C Sharp. And you kind of find the tools within that work really well for you. And then what's interesting is that you start to bring it into your own discipline. So I started to think, okay, how could I improve an ecological practice using Grasshopper? For me, in my thesis, I worked with bees, and I created a whole visualization software for modeling the inside of a beehive that completely opened up the way that beekeepers are thinking about like hive monitoring in the winter. That is turning into this larger project here at Cornell. So don't think about like tools as something that's scary, like do I need to learn all of them? Take your time with them and see how those could be useful for your own purposes.
Thank you, Kobe. Another question in the chat. So how do students plan their own learning courses and navigate to their second year at Cornell Tech? I can kick off with an answer and then I'll pass it to some of our students and faculty. So when you arrive here in the first year, you will have a faculty advisor. You're assigned an advisor. You can choose to never meet with that faculty member. Or you can meet with them frequently, which I highly encourage. And that faculty advisor is not necessarily, if you're in the thesis track, who will become the chair of your committee, more than likely not. But that person is a faculty touchstone for you to talk to about your course planning, broader sort of career ambitions, research interests, how to connect with people here in the university, right? So that's one mechanism to help support how you structure your learning path. We also support that through the required courses, right? So the pedagogy, which as I mentioned was piloted for over 4 years before we launched the program. It was tested, it was tuned, it was adapted. The pedagogy also supports what you're doing and helping you to frame your next steps. So for example, in the Spring Studio, as I mentioned, it's structured as a pre-thesis and pre-specialization project studio. And the 5 components of that curriculum, which cater to both tracks. One is focused on literature review and case study research. So understanding the state of the art of your project interest. Defining the sort of gap that you want to look at and really understanding what's been done before. We bring in experts, our librarians, teaching you that, Google search is not the best way to do, research, and to take advantage of the resources here. You refine your methodologies. You also will do, as I mentioned, user research. So talking to other people to get input on what you're doing. You might think that you have the perfect answer, but when you talk to others, you might realize, oh, wow, I never thought about it that way. I need to pivot. And we also do a lot on the topic of pitching, communications, right? You can have a ton of beautiful work, incredible creative assets, but if you don't know how to communicate what you're doing, what your project is all about, it potentially could fall flat. So we work on that both in the first year and also in the second year. The studio curriculum is really focused on that. And then finally, you'll do a lot of prototyping, both physical and digital. You'll learn how to write about your work. But maybe the last thing I'll say is the faculty, we're very committed to both our teaching and research, and we're incredibly committed to all of you and your success. So use your network of faculty to help guide you as well. Maybe I'll open it to some of our
I was
students.
gonna point out that Mercy is online, and I hope he doesn't mind if I actually ask him to say something, because I think he's made really
Yeah.
fabulous use of the faculty resources.
Excellent. Mercy, if you're there, we'd love to hear a little bit about your experience at Cornell Tech. There he is. And
Hi,
even first year?
yeah. Hi everyone. My name is Messi. I'm in the professional track and second year course. So regarding the question about career advice, I really think Cornell has been a very good institution in the sense that we have career services that actually offers tons of advice on classes you have to take based on your career trajectory. So in terms of getting your grant and taking the right courses, there are tons of resources available. You just have to maximize them. And also beyond career services, the faculty members so very welcoming, and they always give advice and guidance on the right thing to do. So you have all you have to have a very good career path in your time during in the econ. So all I would just say is just to be open-minded, reach out to them. They are really available and highly ready to guide you. So yeah.
Thank you, Mercy. Great to hear from you. There was a related question in terms of how one structures their thesis track. So in the spring semester, by the end of the semester, those in the thesis research track will designate their chair of your committee. So your committee of advisors, including your chair and your minor members who support your project direction, are there to help focus and shape your path. So you'll move from the pre-thesis studio into working with your committee, meeting at least once a week with that faculty advisor. We also have structured reviews where we all come together and you get feedback from the larger faculty cohort. So there are many touchstones to help you along the way. Do we have any additional questions here in person before I continue with the chat? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So I was at a Cornell's class. It's work.
There we go.
Thank you. So I was at Cornell Tech Virtual Event last week, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that the project studio, they put different people in the same major, and the people on your team might not be in the same major as you. Is design tech also part of that? And is that, am I remembering correctly?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So you will, and this is true for our current first years who are in the studio track, over the summer between the spring and the start of your second year, you will be able to select what your project interests are within the studio. And then you're also placed in a team of 4 to 6 people with students representing all of the different programs. So we definitely do not put all the DTech students together. In fact, most of the teams would probably just have one student from DTech because the whole point is to bring students together from different disciplinary backgrounds. And that's true throughout the curriculum in the second year.
And additional question, for both the required class and the electives, what's the average size of class?
Great question. So our electives are tapped at 24 seats. And the required courses, as I mentioned, we're growing. So our cohort incoming will be 36 students. So the size in design for physical interaction and coding for design will be 36 plus approximately 4 seats that we keep open for students who are interested in taking these courses outside of DTech. And that came about simply because we had a lot of students say, I really want to take that course. And the faculty teaching the courses said, oh, hey, we'd love to have engineering students coming in. So
so if I'm understanding correctly, that for the required class, the whole cohort will be the same in the same class.
Yes. One exception would be in coding for design, we have the option, if you are coming in with an advanced background in programming, there is the option to go through a petition process where you could petition to opt out of that requirement and replace it with an equivalent course that meets the components of that, but also is meeting, where you're at in terms of your expertise. We had 2 students this year, right? Correct? 3, yeah.
What is the department's view on using generative AI for rapid prototyping?
Oh, it's a great question. So we see ourselves as sort of really at the forefront of integrating these tools, integrating them creatively, but also critically. So I mentioned the example of the large language objects and some of the elective courses. It certainly comes into studio. We just had a workshop last week on video production and editing with AI tools and taking advantage of some of those tools. With writing, we ask that you cite, when you're using Gen AI and how you're using it. But we really see it as an opportunity, and we teach you how to kind of open up the hood and work with these LLMs creatively and critically, as I mentioned. But I think maybe some of the students would be great to talk to about this. You guys want to say anything about what you're doing with AI tools in either core courses or studio?
Can I maybe add something?
Yeah, Jose, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question. I think Wendy and I were recently in San Francisco in a conversation with people in Berkeley about similar topics. And far from, I think, policing a use of the tools as in cheating, I think we want to foster a creative approach. Like, what does it mean to do creative coding on the age of agentic support or engineering? And I think that Harold and I, for instance, here we share a lab, and we constantly talk about the different modalities by which we design with these tools. Having the knowledge on code often is, very, very important to know what to ask, but also moving to a different degree of abstraction and the type of questions, the type of maybe even more ambitious software development ideas that might come about just by working with an agent tool. So I think that it's a very exciting time. I think that we've developed more software in the last few, months just through these tools than we maybe have done for a long time. But that comes with a kind of a disciplinary shift of how do we kind of adopt different knowledge structures, and how do we do that in a way with the same rigor and that we've done in the past. So I think that that's part of the conversation that we're having at the moment.
We're also hiring people who are at the cutting edge of this work. So Wendy and I both mentioned Max Kremensky, for example, but our faculty are integrating these tools and working with them and really sort of pushing the boundaries and breaking the tools in productive ways. And the last thing I'll say, I briefly mentioned in the fall, one of our electives is titled AI Design and Creativity. And that course will be supported by Autodesk funds, and it will be capped at 50 students. So it's not only offered to design tech, but we think it'll be a quite popular course with students across disciplines. And Daniel Leifinger will be leading that. So we're super excited about that course too. Any other comments from our students about Gen AI? Swar?
Hello, everyone. My name is Swar. I'm a second cohort student, first year. I think that AI is a great tool for learning. I think a lot of us use Claude and things like that to more quickly understand new tools and prototype and iterate. But I think something that we commonly discuss in classes like physical interactions is understanding the creative limitations of AI. I think in many ways, we are designers, or in the pursuit of design, you're not like the AI is, it's going to be tough for the AI to compete with your ideation process, but it's a fantastic supplement to that. There's tools out there like Viscom and Flora that can help you kind of iterate through and render your ideas, but it still requires you to have some degree of input. And those are really great tools because you can input sketches. You're not using it's not LLM based, although you can use LLMs to then augment the initial input sketch. So the tools are out there. They're very valuable, but again, you kind of need to understand where their limits are and how they fit into your process.
I see that colleague Uli Weissner is here, and maybe we can just take a moment. Uli, if you could introduce yourself and maybe say a few things about what you do. I didn't do your work justice, but I did go through your slide.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Uli Wiesner. I'm a faculty in this department, and my background is chemistry from education, but then I moved into engineering. And am now in material science and engineering over in the engineering college. And as maybe Jenny has already indicated, I'm kind of the guy that does molecular design, and my interests are pretty broad. They range from anything from, materials for oncology applications in medicine, all the way to kind of materials in quantum science and information science. And what is the gel that keeps it all together is essentially the design from the molecular across multiple scales all the way to the macro scale. So kind of if you think of biology, of your own body, biology is kind of the master of doing that all the way from the molecular scale to your, body scale, let's say. And so we're trying to emulate that and understand the mechanisms that lead to this kind of hierarchical structure formation and how that can be useful for different materials. And I'm totally thrilled again to, welcome the new class of design tech students in the fall. This is a super interesting, very interdisciplinary environment. And the fact that someone like me is part of the faculty tells you that there is not, a specific focus on architecture. It's really, really inter and cross-disciplinary, which is a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Uli. Also, I've mentioned James's work, but I'd love to have James say a few things about his work and maybe the course you're teaching right now.
Yeah, sure. So my name is James Weaver. I have a joint appointment between design tech and material science and engineering. And I actually began my career as a classically trained zoologist. So I came at this from a very heavy biodiversity centric approach. And most of my work is focused on looking at structure-function relationships in complex biological materials, and then extracting critical design information for solving real-world problems in the engineering and biomedical and biological sciences. So the course I'm teaching currently is an introduction to additive manufacturing. We do a ton of work using 3D printing as a critical tool for being able to elucidate these structure-function relationships, as well as for complex data visualization. So we bring a whole bunch of state-of-the-art modern commercial 3D printers and make these technologies available to the students pretty much throughout their entire duration while they're at Cornell. So I'm happy to speak more about what we do. I've had a lot of really wonderful interactions with a bunch of the students this past year. They've been really wonderful, and I look forward to meeting all of you as well. So thank you.
And again, a shout out this evening at 5:30, both here in person in the Milstein Auditorium, but also via Zoom. James will be giving the third lecture in our spring lecture series. So you're in for a treat. So please join us at 5:30 for that lecture. We have another great question in the chat. Well, I will throw this out to current students. What surprised you most after starting the program, both positive and or challenging, that you would like to share? Jacob?
Or second cohort, first year student. And I think from the positive, overwhelmingly, I've found that everybody I reach out to across campus open to meet with you, to help you, point you towards resources. I feel like a lot of places maybe tout that, oh, we have very interdisciplinary things, but then you get there and people are still very siloed. And this isn't a sales pitch. I've found through the user interviews that Jenny's been talking about, reaching to people across campus from other universities that the professors have connections with. People are just overwhelmingly generous with their time and sometimes their resources, to kind of fill the gaps. Again, I'm from an architecture background, and so kind of fill in like engineering, biology gaps that I don't have the background of, that people are very happy to assist with. So that's been amazing. Hello. Is
the technical portions that
Good. Getting some new batteries.
Thank you so much. Wasn't aware with running a lot of more advanced computational tools and fabrication tools that I never had access to before. So I've had opportunities to manufacture a bunch of things that I never thought I could. And then also, like Jacob mentioned, the opportunity to collaborate across disciplines is huge. So never in my undergraduate years did I think I would be doing CT scans of bats for my thesis, for instance. So yeah, and one of the challenging things I think was, weirdly enough, the technical side of it, because it was a steep learning curve, but it was very rewarding if you put in the time to actually learn the craft. I think it's really worth it.
Yeah, why don't we start with Alex and then Swar?
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex, I'm second cohort, first year student here, and I just want to echo what all my classmates said about like the resources you have on campus, the amazing professors from different disciplines that aren't even part of your faculty are always willing to help with the like research that you're doing because they're also interested in the ideas and work that you're proposing. But I also want to mention like your cohorts as well. Like your own classmates are from like multiple different disciplines, and they're willing to share with you their previous knowledge and the work that they've been doing, and like the software, they're always willing to teach you that kind of stuff. So you don't have to be worried about just only reaching out to the university. You have friends and people that you're going to work with. You're going to do hackathons with them. You're going to do projects. You're going to stay in studio all night together. So you're going to build like a camaraderie with them. Yeah, so it's just amazing to be with all these people and just learn so much from them. And I think that's like what really makes this program shine.
I'll mention that we had actually three student groups go to MIT to participate in the annual huge hackathon that the Media Lab puts on. And they took first prizes, killed it. So there are opportunities to reach even beyond, the university to engage. Swar.
Yeah, I think the final thing that I would add would be like, as far as like what is challenging, I think everything about it is challenging, but I think it's in the best way possible, right? Like, you're really going to be taken out of your comfort zone, and you're going to be, I mean, a lot of our work is group projects. So if you're coming from a background of doing a lot of independent work, you're going to be working with different people. But yeah, I think it's like a huge opportunity for growth. And so everything is going to have that like delayed gratification and reward at the end of it. So if it wasn't challenging, I feel like it wouldn't really be worth it. So, kind of come in with that in mind.
That's great. We have another question from from an admitted student that I see we overlooked. As students admitted to the thesis track, do we have the opportunity to learn about or access Cornell Tech's labs and projects? The answer is yes. Each year we bring the first year students down to Cornell Tech. As I mentioned, we just did that about a week and a half ago. We're actually going to shift that for all of you incoming students, and we're going to make that visit happen in the fall so that you get to know the second year students and the studio track earlier on, as well as the faculty and get to know the staff there. For those of you that are interested in maybe working with faculty such as Harold, Wendy, or Jose, or Max, as he will join in July, that's definitely possible. We've had students do that in the past, either through independent studies. I mentioned one project that Harold and I co-advised between an MDC student, the former MS MDC, which is now Design Tech, and a connected media student. And that ongoing thesis project ended up getting published, and they're out doing amazing work. So there are different ways of connecting. All right. Any other questions here in person? And any questions that we may have overlooked online, or any additional questions?
Jenny, there's one that just came in online.
Okay, we have great one here in person, and we have a few more minutes.
For current students, did you have like a very specific focus or aspect of the program that you were planning on just really honing in on? And have you stuck to that, or have you really explored a lot of different paths once you were in the program?
Biology.
I think I kind of stayed in that track, but one unexpected thing that happened here was I joined business lab.
Brilliant researcher, her name's Madison Feely, who does textile design. And from working with her and looking at knit structures and learning about how adaptive and intricate they can be, I started to reach out to human ecology and working with their computational knitting machines, their digital loom, and my thesis was transformed not only as a way to visualize bee systems, but maybe look at how we could create textiles from the bees and with the bees, and whether that could improve their health. And so I have like this whole side tangent of projects that started to explore like fashion and textile design that were not in any way an original part of me coming here, but I'm super excited at how it turned out.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because I had the exact same question when I was sitting in your position last year, and I think Kobe's pretty right. I came in with a very like specific vision of what I wanted to do, but I think you certainly can stick to that, and for the most part, I am. But as a result of being exposed to a lot of different disciplines, as well as your classmates that you'll do group projects with, you might learn something new and want to push your work in a different direction. For context, I come from a footwear design and innovation background, and last semester our kind of core studio project was revolving around that. And this semester we've continued that, but it's transitioned into more of a furniture project by combining the different disciplines of the people on my team. So yeah, I think you certainly have the avenues to do both. And then of course, there's electives not only within design tech, but all over campus that allow you to like supplement your overarching mission as a designer.
Great. All right, we're going to take the last question here from Christopher online. Hi, I come from an economics background, and I'm interested in how structural and social systems can be translated into design, particularly in spatial and participatory contexts. I was wondering how the program supports integrating social science frameworks into design research, and whether students have explored topics like policy, behavior, or economic systems through design. So there are lots of opportunities. We actually have a recent graduate who developed a thesis around these topics, and he just started a PhD extending that thesis work. So the faculty here can help you make connections to those areas. Jose, you want to say a few things?
Yeah, definitely. While I don't have an economics background, I do have like a experience on game design. The class that I teach on game design for research, it's not a class in which we actually look specifically at like doing any type of games, but really observing human behavior. I've been developing an open source library that includes things like events and policies that you can change. So it's certainly trying to create a player economy and how the different incentive structures in any urban environment or in any kind of context kind of yields different types of behaviors of players. So that merge with analytics, understanding and observing how players kind of interact with one another lends itself to a framework that we can actually create hypotheses on how social behavior is actually in fact happening. So it's very much aligned with what you're asking. And so that video game class is kind of a place for experimenting, but certainly we can like nurture that connection with other disciplines as well. We feel like we can expand that.
Great, thanks, Jose. And then last question, which I'm going to pass to Marina. Following up on my previous question, as I'm interested in materials and automation, are there lab opportunities for this topic in the coming year?
Thank you. Well, I think as mentioned before, depending on your interest, there's a lot of faculty research in different avenues, research avenues that are, potentially available to you. There's a number of projects ongoing. Talking about material and automation, I think almost like every faculty here on campus engage one way or another. So depending on, your interests and ongoing work, you can reach out to faculty and find synergies that will allow you to either work directly on faculty research or even propose your own topic and kind of like develop that through studies, thesis, and other opportunities. And yeah, I think like that there's really a broad spectrum beyond the things that you see here today and the extensions I think that each faculty have. I think even more broaden the scope, maybe return to the previous question. So I talked in my presentation about, engaging with people from psychology or other backgrounds on how we assess technological systems. So if you're interested in policy and whatnot, maybe, for example, in my research, it's not a direct collaborative project, and then you can engage with people that develop policies around that. So think not through the individual entities, but also the extensive networks that faculty have here on campus and beyond the campus.
Excellent. So with that, we're going to wrap up the formal part of the morning session. Thanks to everyone who has joined here in person and everyone online, especially those online. Thanks for dealing with our few technical glitches. Hybrid is always interesting. And thanks to our incredible faculty, Jose, Harold, Francois, Marina, James, Uli, Tiffany, and Rebecca and Art. This has been recorded. So we will put this online. And if we didn't get to your question, or if afterwards you're like, I wish I had posed that, please reach out. Reach out to myself, to our faculty. We're here to help you navigate this. And for those of you that have not yet made your decision about making design tech your graduate future home, let us know how we can help convince you. So thanks so much. Great to see everyone in line.